You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves. She will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change, who are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating a space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were born wild.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Henderson. And today I have with me Lindsay, who's going to share all of her birth stories. Lindsay, will you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, my name is Lindsay Gretch. I am a mom of 6. I live out in Sebastopol, and I have had births ranging from hospital to birthing center to home birth.
Yeah, and fun fact, your husband was on our Father's Day episode that came out this year. He was one of our panel of experts of dad. Oh, I just inhaled my own spit. Dads who were sharing their experiences. So he shared a little bit there.
Yeah.
Not details, but basics. Yeah. So let's just start at the beginning.
So my first birth with my son, as well as my second birth with my daughter Athena, were both hospital births. There was a lot of things that I wanted out of the birth, but I wasn't in the mindset or in the place of advocating for myself well enough in the hospital setting. Especially with my son, it was, my first, and there's so many things that I wish that I had done differently. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a birth and you're like, man, I wish I had done this differently or this differently. So then, which the hospital birth, it was fine. There was a lot of stuff that I wasn't okay with in hindsight. Then
my
daughter,
in a way, I feel this way about myself. I have 2 children. It's a shame when people only have 2 experiences because I feel like you slowly improve on your pregnancy, your birth, your postpartum with each child. And when you stop early on with 2 or so, I feel like you only get a shorter amount of time to really make it be what you want it to be.
yeah, I feel like with each of mine, I've dived deeper and deeper into my knowledge of birth, my power within myself and what I know I can do. And it's grown with each consecutive birth. I'm like, well, if I could do that, I can do this. And you just keep stepping forward into birth. And so with my daughter Athena, so that's my second hospital birth, her birth was pretty traumatic for both myself and my husband. It just from the moment we stepped into the hospital, it was like this cascade of things happening wrong. It just they were overcrowded. I was in a triage room. My nurse was a student nurse and couldn't really answer any of my questions, wasn't equipped to help me labor. I ended up with an epidural that I really didn't want. And I was pumped full of a lot of drugs. And at the end of my laboring, when I was sure, I knew I needed to push. I was ready to push, and nobody believed me that I was ready. And the doctor wasn't even in the room. And the doctor came in and was like, "No, you're not there." And I was like, "Okay, I'll just do it. Otherwise, can you check?" And he, checked and threw his sweatshirt off. I'll never forget. And was like, "The baby's right there." And she flew out, and with my water breaking, And then she was totally blue, like not breathe. They had cut the umbilical cord, right away. And so nothing was getting to her either.
Mhm.
And that's one of those things I didn't know at the time. And
Those
they
are those things that you hope your provider knows,
right. So she was whisked away,
Mhm.
and I'm bawling, crying. My husband's bawling. Like it was just a lot happened. And I felt so out of it and kind of drugged up. I could barely hold my baby. And I promised myself and to my husband that if we ever had another child, I would never do it in a hospital again. So then when we're pregnant again, that's when I journeyed to a birthing center. And the birthing center was kind of a little, in between of home birth and hospital, where after then having um, had two children at the birthing center, and there was still a little bit of that. Some things were tried forced on you. It wasn't that you were completely in charge kind of your birth, but I did feel supported. I felt like I didn't have the pressure of the hospital, but it still was not exactly what I was looking for. But I had my birth there. My birth of my daughter Bryn was like at the start of the pandemic. So it was like a little crazy navigating, but they were great with like my wishes of how my husband was absolutely going to be there. I wasn't going to not have him with me, and it ended up fine. Then finding you was kind of my, you know, how amazing home birth is moment. I was pregnant with my daughter Kinley, and I did an ultrasound, and at this point I was figuring I was going to have her at the birthing center. And I had an ultrasound where they kind of said we think something's wrong with your baby, and these are the different things it could be, and you can choose to terminate now, or you're going to need to do XYZ, all these different tests. You're going to need to go to San Francisco. You're going to need more genetic testing. And I was terrified, and I was hysterically crying. And I just remember getting in the car and talking to my sister, and she said, "Well, you don't trust doctors for anything. Why are you trusting them now?"
Mhm.
And she was like, "I think you should call Sophia." And the next day I called you, and it was actually that night I prayed that I would get a sign that it would be okay to just have her at home and that everything would be okay. And the next day I was actually at church, and a gentleman who I'd never spoken to came up to me and said, God wanted me to tell you that he's working something out in you, and like gears in a clock, and that everything is going to work out the way it's supposed to, and that he has his hand on you through whatever you're going through. And I was like, well, all right, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen.
That's so neat.
And at that point, you couldn't tell I was pregnant. Like he had no idea. This was early on. And I told him, what had happened. And he's like all emotional, and I'm crying. And it was a moment. And so I just stepped into home birth, just trusting that this was my path. And not to say that I didn't, have some nerves or have some, lots of questions for you and all that, but it was the most empowering, most amazing, like most beautiful experience that I've ever had. And I would shout it from the rooftops that I would hope that every woman could experience a home birth. So that was my birth with Kinley. And then when we found out we were pregnant again with Mercy May, I called you. You were like the second person who knew after my husband. I'm like, I'm calling Sophia.
Well, there was one time between them that you called me, and I for sure thought you were pregnant, but you were actually considering midwifery.
Yes.
But I feel like we're getting a little bit ahead because I do want to back you up. Can you go back to the two hospital birth babies? And can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit about like prenatal? Because you've had kind of two of each, and just about like the difference in prenatal care and like what it looked like. Like, kind of paint a picture for anyone who maybe is a first time mom and is curious about what care looks like for each, like the differences.
Yeah. So for hospital birth, for both of those, my prenatal care, and this could be different for other people, but for myself, it was me fighting my provider um, about everything. And it was me refusing things and having to sign waivers and them saying I'm going against what is right, or that I'm putting my baby at risk. Just a lot of fear, a lot of um you know them not knowing if anything's wrong but treating me as though something is wrong. It was a lot of me being treated like I didn't know my body, didn't know what was best for me, and it was stressful, and it was, like I said, it was a fight. Every time I went to an appointment, I was like dreading it, and it was like, what are they going to try to make me do this time that I'm not comfortable doing? What
And did
test?
you know about birth center and home birth and you were actively choosing hospital, or did you just like not even realize that those were options, or was it more like financially
I
driven because it's covered, or
it
why
was
hospital?
I knew about it. It was fear and thinking like I couldn't do it. Like that I wasn't strong enough to do it.
Mhm.
Because actually my sister had all three of hers at home. And so I knew about it. In my head, I was just thinking like I don't think I can do it.
Like the pain piece.
Like the pain, or like just second guessing myself on on all of it, not being knowledgeable enough about birth, which I feel like is a problem. Like women are so, as a whole, so unknowledgeable about birth, unfortunately. Especially with my first, I feel like I didn't know what to expect or what to do. And so the hospital for me was like, well, yeah, I'll just go to the hospital.
Mhm, mhm.
Um so yeah, the not having knowledge, the fear, and feeling like I wasn't strong enough to do it. And so it took the traumatic birth kind of my daughter to push me into being like, I don't care what it looks like, I'm not doing a hospital birth
There's got
again.
to be something better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also remember when you reached out to me the first time that there was a piece there where you were like, I almost can't even make it to the birth center. I would rather someone have to try to get to me. Like that was maybe part of a decision making too, is that you just seem to give birth faster and faster each time. And the idea of staying home appealed to you more and more.
Yeah. So I think there's like that saying that each birth, it's like half the time of your one before.
Uh-huh.
Well, mine are that. And they were getting faster and faster. And with the two birth center births, it was like going in the car from my home to there in active labor, like was the most uncomfortable,
Mhm.
like laboring in a car, having those intense contractions in a car where like, I'm sitting on a towel because I might have to catch the baby, and I'm like, I don't want to do that again. It's stressful for everyone involved. My husband's trying to go like 100 miles an hour but also not get in a wreck, and then I'm laboring, like yelling because I'm so uncomfortable in a seat.
What was prenatal care like at the birth center, like coming from the hospital? How was that prenatal support?
So it was much better. It's kind of like, I would say, like hospital light.
Mhm.
Like it was much better. but they still had things that they wanted me to do. And, I'm sure they're required to have women do certain tests and certain, I don't know, certain things for insurance sake or for whatever it is. But I was like their problem patient and was just like, no, I'm not doing that. I'll sign whatever I have to sign, but I'm just not.
Yeah, you liked a less is more approach. A lot of times, if you have hospital privileges, like if a birth center has hospital privileges, which is awesome that your midwife can go with you to the hospital and still provide care, like as staff, but it also means that they have to follow hospital policy and,
Right.
report to an OB a lot of the times.
Yeah. But the care was, you feel more like you're seen. You feel more like you're not just a number of pregnant women in a big, doctor complex. It was more tailored, I guess, to you, I would say. And which I really appreciated. And at the time, that was where I was comfortable,
Mhm.
was um like that in between of I'm not doing it at the hospital. I know that, but I'm not quite like ready
Yeah, and what do
to
you
do
think
it
it
at
was
home.
about home? Like what was the difference between the birth center and the home birth for you that you couldn't like make that leap right away, if you even know?
Well, I don't know. I think in my own head I just felt like I just wasn't ready, maybe. I wasn't ready to just do it at home. And I don't know if I hadn't have gotten that like scary sonogram that kind of sent me on a different path in my pregnancy, I don't know that I would have made the leap
Mhm.
to home birth. So it's kind of like one of those things, like I'm actually grateful that that happened, because it did push me into, you're going to have your baby at home.
Yeah.
And it's a path that I'm so grateful I took.
There's this mindset of like everything is for you and
Yeah,
like can you spin it that everything is for you and if you have a traumatic experience, obviously working through that, but then can you see the silver lining behind it? And it
right.
sounds like both of the times you had a traumatic experience, you were able to, move forward in a different direction.
Totally. And my home birth like healed that past birth trauma
Mm.
for me, because it was so different and it was so centered on me and the baby. And I felt so empowered and so like seen and so well supported. And it was amazing for me and amazing for my husband. And it was just like this bubble of birth that was just like every from start to finish was just perfect. And I would urge anyone who has like birth trauma and finds himself pregnant again to look into having a home birth, because it really, I mean, I remember my first one with Kinley, it was so healing for me emotionally and physically, and it was beautiful to
Mm.
experience.
One
Yeah.
thing that makes me chuckle when I think about first meeting you is the idea that we can do office visits or home visits. And I was like, yeah, I can totally come to your home. I know you got a lot of little ones. And you were like, no, I'm getting a babysitter. This is me time. I'm coming to the office alone. No one's going to be touching me or sitting on my lap. And I was like, oh, yeah, totally. We could do that. And then with the next baby, you're like, yeah, it's just not realistic. Can you come to me?
The leap from 4 to 5 was really, I'm like, you can just come over.
Yeah. Will you speak a little bit about prenatal care with the home birth practice?
Yeah, I mean, that was completely, mother centered. Every question I had was answered. I never had to feel like I fought on anything. It was, just what I am comfortable with, and then like any recommendations were brought up in such a way that it never felt threatening. It never felt like coercion. It was, you're in a space where you can talk out everything that you're feeling as a expectant mother. And if you go from hospital to home birth care, it's completely different. And it was at every appointment, I felt like I learned something as well. Like it was not just, boxes checked, okay, go home. It was like I'm learning something new about my body, about my pregnancy, about, where I'm at, about my unborn baby. So that was something that I really appreciated.
Yeah. A lot of times too, people who are deciding between birth center and home birth don't realize, yes, the differences, but also the similarities. Like sometimes we joke that we're just a mobile birth center. Like there's nothing that they don't have that we don't have, but we just bring it to
Right.
so sometimes that's a good way of thinking about birth centers, is you're just giving birth in someone else's home.
Yeah. And like for me, I did the in-home sonogram too, which was amazing. Like they don't tell you that that's an option because it's not for like a hospital birth.
Yeah.
But what an amazing thing to offer. And like yeah, it's in any test that I could have wanted to have done, you were able to do. Any blood draws I could have wanted to, like, you're able to do. So you can have all that stuff if you're wanting to in a home birth or in your prenatal care or not. And that's what is so beautiful about it.
Yeah.
Is that you get to have the pregnancy that you're wanting to have and the birth that you're wanting to have.
So tell the listeners a little bit about anything about the birth center births or the home births, like the labor, the actual birth, anything, any fun facts or things that you want to share about how it all went down, other than you barely made it to the birth center.
Yeah.
We learned that you're in denial sometimes.
Oh, yes. I am every time, every single time. I think I'm in denial that I'm actually in labor every time I'm in labor. And it usually takes somebody else calling my midwife. This time, I think my sister was looking at my contraction tracker and was like, somebody needs to call her. And my husband was like, I already did. I could tell by her moaning that, like, we're done.
Like, I got it. I got it now.
Yeah.
I think I even said that, like, we'll just let Patrick decide when it's time for me to come, not you.
Right. Not me. Because I would have just been in my room and had the baby on the floor. Like I would have been like, it's fine. I'm not in labor.
Which you actually did.
Well, yes, I did. But you were there and so was my husband. I wasn't like alone in denial that I was in labor.
I mean, I'm really just there taking photos though. Let's be real.
What I can say is just not obviously that the labor doesn't hurt for me personally, because it does, but it is my experience laboring in home. The birth and the laboring felt completely different than laboring either at a hospital or at a birth center. And I don't know if that is psychologically because you're in your own home or what necessarily caused that. But for me, I was in a different headspace and a different kind of a different realm in laboring than I was at a birth center or hospital. It feels much more manageable for me. It feels like I'm able to completely surrender, where in a hospital, I was tense, I was fearful. I was, you're being interrupted constantly. There's no flow to what was happening for me. And a little bit of that still at the birth center. I wanted to labor standing up and I didn't want anybody to touch me. And I remember one of the nurses like kept touching me and like getting my what is that with the cuff?
The blood pressure cuff?
Getting my blood pressure and checking and like how you do it. And I'm like, can you just like I need to not be touched. And at home, it was a complete surrender, a complete, like, I could go inward and not have to worry about um being taken away from my focus of birth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite memories when I think about your fifth was getting there, and you were clearly pushing your baby out. There wasn't really time for a lot. There was a chair that you were kneeling on kind of backwards.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so I put a chair behind you and I just kind of like sat Patrick down on it. And then his story was that it wasn't until hours later when I was washing the blood off my hands that I even realized I'd caught the baby. And then he called everyone he possibly knew to like tell them that he had caught the baby. You could see how proud he was. It was really cute.
Yeah. He said that was like one of his, best life memories is the first time catching his daughter. And we still have the pants that he wore like when he caught her. They're up in a shelf in our closet. Like yeah. He'll tell anyone like that every father should experience that. And that it was one of his greatest memories ever.
Yeah, it's not just about like
Oops.
healthy
Did
moms.
you freeze?
Oh, can you hear me?
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe. If you'd like to follow along, you can find us on Instagram at Born Wild Podcast and Facebook. You can go to our website at www.bornwildmidwifery.com. See you later.